Hi, my name is Jerry Wise, and for over 45 years, I've helped thousands of clients from narcissistic, dysfunctional, alcoholic, and emotionally immature families get unstuck, heal, and get their family of origin out of them. This video, I want to talk about how do narcissistic parents create highly reactive children and adults. And certainly that's very common for those who have grown up in narcissistic homes where we become very highly reactive when we become adults. Now, that certainly we may not all be reactive in the same way, and we may not be reactive like our narcissistic parent was reactive. So I'm not talking about they may get rageful and abusive. You may not get rageful or abusive. You know that was wrong. You hated that. You try not to do that. But the reactivity inside of us is still at work. And so we can get very reactive on the inside, even though we try to control it on the outside. And again, some of that programming and that training has come from growing up in a narcissistic home. What are some of the things that contribute to that? A lack of emotional validation. So when we have a lack of emotional validation, we're belittled about our feelings, our thoughts, our beliefs, our goals, and I can certainly remember parents who play, I remember my own father would play a very devil's advocate role. Anytime I had a dream, it was like, oh, but you need to think about this, Jerry, and that's not a very good idea. And this is not going to work out well for you. You need to go this way. Okay, well, that just invalidates my emotional dreams and my career dreams and what I would like to do or even to explore. And so then the emotional validation switch gets turned off when I'm younger. And so then when I get older, that switch is still off and I don't feel emotionally validated. Secondly, inconsistent and unpredictable behavior. If you've got a parent or parents who are narcissistic, they're emotionally unpredictable, offering love or love bombing at one moment and then withdrawing it and rejecting the next. And so it just kind of has this roller coaster effect emotionally. We then become hypervigilant or reactive. And we're always looking to see what's other people's moods going to be like. And I have to scan that at all times as an adult. And so, as a result of that inconsistent or unpredictable behavior, the world is okay, the world is safe, switch gets turned off, and a switch gets turned on that says everybody is questionable, and anybody who's reactive, I should worry about. And again, that creates a very highly reactive adult in me as an adult child of a narcissist. Thirdly, excessive criticism and perfectionism. Narcissists demand perfection from their children, not from themselves, but from everyone else. And they can subject them to harsh criticism. Then we have this heightened sensitivity to criticism, a constant fear of making mistakes, causing highly reactive defensive responses. And so when we grow up, again, talking about the switches again, that naturally are on, then they become switched off because we better switch those off because that will not work in this family. And so trying something new because we have a confidence or we're not going to be berated or criticized, we may go ahead and do that in a normal home or a healthy home. In a narcissistic home, that's shut off. And so don't try anything new. Don't do this. Don't explore. Don't share your feelings. Again, it's only going to be criticized and it's never going to be good enough. So the good enough switch is turned off. And again, I think recovery and healing is about learning to turn those switches back on. And that's what I provide in the program, a recovery program that's listed below in the description. I hope you'll check that out. A New Road to Self. in which we begin to take those natural switches that should be on but have been turned off and learn to turn them back on and to see a new way of living for us as adults. Also with the program, I think you might find a monthly group coaching session with me that's a part of the program for a year, and that can be a help to you to recover. Number 4, manipulation and gaslighting. If someone's always manipulating reality, gaslighting reality, manipulating us in some way, then we doubt our own perceptions, we doubt our own sense of self, and again, then trusting self switch that should be on in a natural way as we grow up as children gets shut off. And then we become someone who's insecure. We can't trust ourselves. Am I sure that's the way it was? They're probably right over my reality. And again, we can see, hear, smell, taste, and feel things, and we'll discount what our own eyes are showing us because we have been treated in such a manipulative, gaslighting way. This creates a lot of reactivity within us. And a very heightened, what I call systems anxiety, which is an anxiety beyond just an anxiety disorder. It is a deep underneath anxiety that we inherit and are programmed from our family of origin. Number 5, codependency. Narcissistic parents encourage codependency. I want you to take what I do, I say, and how I behave in a way in which you just be fawn, fight, flight, fawn, and we choose a fawning response, which is the codependency response. And that's where we end up have a heightened sense of sensitivity to others' needs and expectations. The problem is with codependency, we often have the cart before the horse. I think focusing on others, worrying about others, caring about others, which are all can be good things. I'm not saying caring about others is a bad thing, but if it goes first before the horse, which is I have learned to care about myself, then we have a real problem and we have the cart before the horse. And a lot of folks are in a cart before the horse way of living. They haven't found their own true self, but they're all worried about caring about others all the time. And they never do find a true self, which I think is the way to true love, caring, compassion, etc. Number 6, enmeshment. Enmeshment occurs when a narcissistic parent does not respect their child's boundaries. They don't care about their child's boundaries. And in fact, they believe relationships in the family should be boundaryless. And so we're always feeling intruded upon or intrusive emotionally. I remember, parents who would ask, well, how much did you get paid for your new job? And they would become very intrusive about that. Well, where are you going to buy that new house? Have you looked at new houses? I'd like to go with you and help you pick out a new house. That's not someone who's saying, hey, if you'd like my help, I'd be happy to help you. Or I'm certainly interested in where you live. I hope you'll share it with me sometime. No, it's somebody who's being intrusive and pushes with that enmeshment. Or they'll say, well, that's not a very cute haircut. Or, in my case, when are you going to get a haircut? When I'm 63 years old. At that time, I remember Mom making a point of that. It's like, what? Why are you worried about my haircut? What has that got to do with anything? I think I'm old enough to worry about that myself. But that intrusiveness still lives on. And some parents would say, oh, that's just the way parents are. Well, it may be the way parents are. And I'm not saying parents don't learn to be somewhat intrusive when their children are young. Children need some intrusiveness when they are young. But then we have to learn to pull that back as parents. That's our responsibility. And so people will go, oh, well, that's just the way I am as a parent. Well, wait a minute. If your child's 63 and you're 90, maybe it's time to make a change. Maybe that's not the right way to interact with your biological child. Number 7, fear of abandonment. Narcissistic parents may use threat of abandonment. If you don't do what I want, if you make that choice, I'll withhold or withdraw my love or my relationship from you. Then when we become adults, we're highly reactive. Anybody that sort of threatens that, we become highly charged and highly reactive. Number 8, role reversal. And of course, this is where we become parentified or we become silently seduced, which is a parent who makes a child a partner. Parentification is a parent who makes a child a parent. Silently seduced is a parent who makes a child a partner to them. And take on those type of roles, we can become overly focused on caretaking and highly reactive to the emotional states of others. And that becomes lots of reactivity that's going on there. And one of the things I do in my program is to help people reduce that reactivity, which is so very important for us, getting the horse in front of the cart rather than the cart in front of the horse as we travel on. And so reducing that reactivity is very important. Number 9, difficulty in forming healthy relationships. Do narcissists have healthy relationships with their children, their spouses, virtually anybody? No. Boundaries are messed up. Expressing their own needs or wants if you're the other person in the narcissistic relationship. And we do all kinds of maladaptive coping when we've been in a relationship with a narcissist. This carries over into adulthood, and then we find ourselves highly charged and highly reactive. Number 10, we end up with an overactive amygdala. What's the amygdala? The part of the brain that's deep inside our brain that does some processing of memories, decision-making, and above all, emotional responses. And that amygdala has been triggered over and over and over again if we've grown up with a narcissistic parent. Now, when we live our life, we're still having our amygdala overly charged. Number 11, we share the family anxiety and reactivity. Over generations, family anxiety and reactivity comes down to us and comes to us. And that's where I talk about in my program, family anxiety and systems anxiety and how important that is. And if you add family anxiety and another layer of CPTSD anxiety, then if someone has an anxiety disorder, we end up with 3 layers of anxiety. And family anxiety is one that we can begin to work on to reduce these other 2. Number 12, passing on intergenerational trauma. Certainly CPTSD gets passed down through the generations. Great-grandparents were abusive, grandparents were abusive, parents were abusive. Now we have intergenerational trauma that has just gone on. And I think it's even deeper than that. I think we've come to find that even cells pass on messages that are traumatic. But that's for a whole nother discussion. And then 13, little or no self-regulation. How well does a narcissist self-regulate? Not well at all. Or maybe you have a borderline parent or an alcoholic parent. They do not self-regulate emotionally at all well. And we're on the receiving end of that no self-regulation. And that creates an awful lot of reactivity in those of us who grew up in those homes. I hope you'll subscribe, comment, and like. I want to thank you for joining me today. Have a great day and be wise.